the Honorable Ron Villanueva, here with my distinguished guest to give a General Assembly update and tell us about all the good things she's doing. Is my friend and a former opponent, but now we're BFFs all the way. Delegate Kelly Fowler from the 21st House District. Kelly is a mother of three. She's a realtor, small businesswoman, hardworking state representative. We are lucky to have her here today. Thank you, Kelly, for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Ron. I appreciate you doing this. I think it's really helpful. And I also appreciate all your help that you've given me since I have taken over this district, and I couldn't have done it without you. I appreciate you so much. So thank you for everything that you continue to do.
Thanks, Kelly. I appreciate that. And that just shows you bipartisanship does work in finding solutions. And more often than not, you find a lot of commonalities. And Kelly and I have a lot of commonalities. We're both Filipino, and we both have children in school, and we
In
love
the
her.
class at times.
Yeah, absolutely. Kel, the General Assembly is upon us. We're in our second week. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on in the General Assembly now and some of the legislation that you're carrying?
Yeah, absolutely. So we just finished up our second week, and it's definitely been a learning curve and a learning experience to do everything virtually. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to do it virtually. I think we're all in a very unique situations with families, with our children. Everyone's just having to be very flexible and just figure out during this pandemic how we can get through it, how we can survive. So being a small business owner, having my own brokerage definitely gives me that experience. And then having to do all that from home with the children is definitely a challenge. So it does help, though. I think everything being virtual, because now people can keep up with the General Assembly, know what's going on, and they don't have to drive 4 hours to get to Richmond to be able to attend a 7 a.m. committee meeting where they might only have 1 minute to speak. Now they can put their testimony in a system. There's links for every bill where they can put their testimony in, or they can sign up to speak. So it's giving a lot of access to people that we're really kind of looking at, and in the future also to be able to do more of. So it's also a lot easier for the legislators to be able to jump from committee to committee. We're not having to go from one building to another, or one committee meeting to another. We're able to do that virtually. So we can leave a meeting and come into another meeting via Zoom. And it is really helpful. We have a separate, this is kind of like how this works, but we have a separate voting device. So this is actually where I do all my voting. So, and there's only one thing I can click on here to really get to anything. And it always kind of keeps track of what committee you're in, what vote you need to take. So the tech aspect of everything has really been helpful. So that's kind of like the background, what's been going on. So there's a lot of positives as we move forward, and we're just dealing with it, one day at a time. So I know I'm kind of getting in the weeds with just the general, but when it comes to, the biggest things that we're dealing with, it would be COVID-19, our response, and small business and businesses in general, and the economic kind of repercussions of what we're going through, which we're still in. So, I mean, I can go into detail about bills and about the initiatives, but I do want to probably pause because I could probably just rattle on forever. And if there was anything I should elaborate on, you think, Ron?
Kelly, I appreciate you giving us some insight with regards to technology. I was always been a big fan of technology, and I do concur with you. I mean, it gives people more access and accessibility and transparency when they can see their legislators in action and actually viewing in a committee meeting. I remember, chairing some of the 7 a.m. committee meetings because, the schedule is always compacted, and now with technology, we're seeing the benefits of that, and we appreciate your accessibility, Kelly. Kelly, with regards to some of the topics that you talked about, coronavirus, how do you think Virginia is rolling out its coronavirus vaccine response, and how is that helping the communities? And in addition, where do you see small business, or do you see more business assistant grants as well?
That's a really good question. You've got your thumb on the pulse of what exactly is going on and what needs to be talked about. So when it comes to COVID-19 response, the biggest thing right now, obviously, is vaccines, is getting this vaccine to as many people as possible. You hear this a lot. You hear shots in arms. We just need to get shots in arms. And there's a lot of challenges that have come up. I mean, we've never done this before. We've never been in a pandemic. So we can plan all we want, and then how it rolls out and how the technology works is definitely a learning curve I've seen. It's not anything that I'm in charge of, but whatever my office can do and what we can do to connect and to try and connect the dots and assist the administration or assist localities, that is what we can do, and that's what we will do. So that's basically been the biggest role that we've been able to play. My office and I have been able to play. So they have been working out these logistics as they went. And I think one of the biggest things is the vaccines are coming from the federal government, and then the state is then distributing them to the local health departments, but not always to the local health departments. Sometimes it's the localities like Virginia Beach who have the capacity to do more. So usually, well, I've been able to get a lot of information, especially because my brother-in-law is chief of EMS. So we've talked a lot about this in Virginia Beach, about how they're doing things. And so we are lucky in Virginia Beach that we have the convention center. So we have the availability of a location, and we have the resources. So we have been able to put a system in place, and we're completely ready. And that was great. We needed to be completely ready, but there's not enough vaccines coming to Virginia Beach because we just don't have them. So the logistics are, we're ready in Virginia Beach. We actually put aside a flu drive. I think they have a flu vaccine, like a drive-through type thing every year. And they put that aside, and then we're able to implement those features into doing the vaccine the same kind of way. So they were able to get this really streamlined process going in Virginia Beach. But then you look at another locality who didn't have that, and they are slow to get those vaccines out because they're dealing with a completely different system, or the local health department's dealing with it. So they've been working those kinks out for the last few weeks to make sure that these vaccines are getting out. So you've got some localities like Virginia Beach who are ready. They're just waiting for more, and the state doesn't have any more at this time to give them. And then you have the localities who or local health departments that are just not able to implement as quickly. So they're going out, but it's getting faster. And Dr. Avola, who is I think he's the czar with the health department dealing with the vaccines, we've been in contact with his office, connecting with Virginia Beach and some practices that we could be doing and implementing in other locales. They want the help. They want to be able to make this roll out faster, and things have sped up. I think that Virginia Beach is slated to get 5,800 every week, 5,800 every week is what right now is projected. And one question I had, which I was glad to get the answer to, was every time they give one, they're not really giving one, they're giving two. So they're putting it aside for the second dose. So those second doses are secured, which was a concern. And also the messaging behind we're going to 1B, that doesn't mean we're done with 1A. 1A is still there. It's just now it's open to I think they're opening up to 1B. So I think there's a lot of we've never done this before, and trying to get it done right and done properly, and coordinating, I think, is the biggest thing. And everything seems to be working. I think it's a waste of time to talk about this on the House floor. There's been a lot of speeches about it. I don't know how that helps. Those 2 or 3 minutes that you just spoke, we could be done 2 or 3 minutes faster, and I could be connecting with my locality and the health department. So I'm not sure what that does besides making it political. So, I mean, there's a point where I think we put politics aside and just do what's good for the people. And you and I have had that conversation several times. So,
Kelly, we appreciate you clarifying that. I mean, a lot of times the messaging is lost, and we appreciate you telling the public that, hey, there's logistics. Virginia Beach has capacity. They're willing to step up. The state's willing to step up. No one's planned for a pandemic, and people need to realize that, but they're doing everything they can to make sure people get the vaccinations. Mm-hmm. With regards to schools and businesses, you and I have talked, the COVID pandemic has certainly impacted schools and businesses in so many ways. What are some of the initiatives that you're seeing come out of the General Assembly with regards to supporting businesses?
No, that's a great question. So I serve on the Small Business Commission and the Minority Business Council. So, and the Minority Business Council has just really got started. So we are just beginning our work. Delegate King, she's a new delegate. She has put in a few bills based on the recommendations of JLARC, and I'm co-chief patroning those with her. And some of them are seem very minor, but they're just steps in the direction that we need to take. So requiring the Virginia Small Business Financing Authority to include in its annual report information that's helpful, that's pertinent. This would be regarding the percentage of loan and grant funds utilized and awarded by the authority during the preceding fiscal year. There was information when we got during our council that our commission meeting, like it wasn't complete. It just, well, do you know how what percentage was awarded, or there was, well, with a PPP, those loans, how did that process work? Was there any, how did that regulating go with who got the loans first? But there was information that isn't required to be reported. So although they seem like minor things to be reported, they're things that we need as a commission to be able to move ahead and do this in a way that helps businesses. It's a really tricky situation right now. We need to just keep businesses going. That way, the sense of normal, and we can get to that normal quicker, so we're not all suffering. I mean, I own a brokerage firm, so I'm a real estate broker, but I used to be a teacher. So I have the aspect of the teaching, where with the kids, and how that affects. So that's a whole nother, knowledge base that I have. And then you have the small business aspect where I feel it as well. And then school does affect business. How do you handle your business when your kids are home and they're in virtual school? And so now you're essentially teacher, or at least monitoring, what they're doing when they're a little bit older, but when they're younger, it's difficult. So it all kind of affects each other. I think it's just, that's what's unique here is there's so many small business owners here, as you know, and just people with children and that have come here and retired here and prior military. So we all have this connection somewhere to what is going on. And it's like a cycle. Everything is affecting each other. And so a lot of that reporting from the small business side and on the business side is going to be helpful. Not right this second, but we need it. We need to be able to move ahead on that, in that aspect. And, I have legislation as well, but I mean, things that are going to help with the, and you could probably, with transportation and being the chair of transportation, that the money that comes to us for our transportation projects in our areas is part of the economy, part of keeping us going. And I do have a bill about the smart scale funding and adding resiliency to that definition. So resiliency, in our area, we talk about, flooding. I mean, because that's a huge impact. And when we talk about roadways and things and transportation, we need to think about that. We need to think about, well, when we prioritize funding, we need to consider resiliency. So that bill is moving along. And of course, I look to any insight you can provide in terms of, any issues that we might have. I'd love for your
input. I'm always here for you, but you're doing a great job. That bill, if I could tell the public, is a very important bill. When we authored the transportation funding, we developed a smart scale ranking, certain criteria, public safety, economic development. We forgot resiliency, and back then, sea level rise, coastal flooding, whatever you want to call it, was a major part of it. And we forgot to put that in there. And now you're championing that, because resiliency is important to Hampton Roads. And when you look at our road projects, particularly like the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, that needs, additional funding. Some of the tunnels that need to be, that need the extra tunnels down in Midtown and downtown that need to be happen. We need that funding, and a lot of folks don't realize, we're competing against other regions, particularly Northern Virginia, that takes a lot of the bandwidth. But we appreciate you championing that, and that shows you the folks out there, man. Kelly Fowler's a delegate that's working hard for them. Kelly, with regards to some of the, when I was in the General Assembly, a lot of pro-business meant, supporting free enterprise, making sure that, people were gainfully employed, job opportunities abound. The shift has been still that, but the shift has been more towards, giving higher pay for wages, compensation. I know you're carrying some compensation bills. Can you tell the public a little bit about why is it important to have a good living wage versus, a minimum wage, and like, how do you balance the two with regards to small business?
No, absolutely. It takes a balance. So we'd only had 7 bills this year just because we're virtual and things are limited. So I had to really kind of pick, what is going to be a priority. And I had to look at the district and kind of see what was a priority to the district as well. And one of them, which the city did ask me to carry, was a workers' compensation bill. And it was the presumption of like heart disease. And it extended it to, it's actually a local option. So it gives the localities the option of extending it to EMS personnel. So if they're volunteer or rescue and you have developed the heart disease, it would be covered under workers' compensation. So a lot of people don't realize the Dillon rule aspect of everything, where we have to allow them to do it. So we have to give the local option to the city, and why not? If the city wants to do it, we need to cover them. Now that bill is being aspects of my bill and Delegate Heretics. People liked both of them, and they ended up being incorporated together. And considering my other bills are all on their way to passing, and many of them unanimously, this bill was rolled into Delegate Heretics bill, but my aspect of the local option and the volunteer and the paid, the employees aspect was adopted into Delegate Heretics. So he's carrying that through, and we incorporated the versions. So, and then you have just talking about living wage and talking about, it's not about minimum wage, it's about livable wage. Like, what's livable? No, we can't live off the minimum wage as it is now. You couldn't work 40 hours a week and live off that in our area. And that's a problem. But also we got to look at small businesses. Could I afford to pay, as a small business owner myself? What could I afford to pay someone through my business? So it's a very balanced approach that we have to take, and it's not easy. And I think there's been a shift, you're right. And I think that shift has been working well, but it takes a slow, steady way of doing it. We can't, put our economy, especially right now, in more of a mess by doing anything drastic. We have to be very careful and take, the appropriate steps. So, I am for a livable wage. Absolutely. We need to get to a place where people can do that, but also we cannot stifle businesses. So there is a way, and we've been working on this, and it's something that's going to be delayed enactment. So we do have time. And then there are other ways to get to improve. I have another bill about it's calling it the Virginia Good Neighbor Next Door program, to get first responders and teachers living in the areas that they work in and serve. So that helps the community. And then that also helps our teachers and our first responders, where it's like a grant program where they're able to buy a house, buy a home, and being able to do that, helps the economy, being able to move ahead and be able to put your roots down and where you're working, and that sense of community. So again, it goes back to like that whole holistic approach, right? Like, again, where it's it really kind of matters. All aspects of it matter. So, but there's a lot of pieces to it, obviously.
Kelly, we've seen a emphasis with regards to economic development center around like gaming and new opportunities in cannabis. Where do you see the windfall with regards to us being more of a pro gaming state? And tell us the recent cannabis legislation. Where is that headed as well?
Yeah, no, I am a co-chief patron on Delegate Heretic, actually, the same patron in his bill to legalize cannabis. So that is an untapped resource. It's been an untapped resource for a long time. It's time to go ahead and get the systems in place to be able to regulate and have the income come into the state from that. So the structure, though, is a big deal. Like, we need to put that structure in place. It's not just legalization. That's not the way it works. We have to put that in place. And I'm not that expert, but I know that there's a plan that can be put. And it is one of the governor's efforts, and something that we think we will get done this session, to get that plan in place for how we go about moving forward. So the answer is, the efforts are to legalize cannabis and to move forward with a plan, an incremented plan that says this is how we're going to do this. And it's going to be, the end result is the legalization. Now, we did decriminalize it last year. So now it would just have been, it's not a jailable offense. So we did decriminalize it. And that was like step one, right? We need to get to the steps of this. People I think the change is good. It's incremental. It cannot be too. I voted against things that, it's just too much. Like, we can't do that right now. Like that's just too much for us. We need to wait. So there's always that issue of voting for what's best for the district and how we get that change done. So that was legalization. And what was the other one you just said? You said the
Well, I mean, gaming, like for instance, now we got sports betting here in Virginia. We have, I think you guys are probably extending the Queen of Skills gaming um, games that you see in 7-Elevens and restaurants, and there's an potentially economic windfall behind that. And I think a lot of folks are missing out and not understanding that. So do you see economic opportunities based off those two initiatives as
Oh,
well?
no, absolutely. I am for expanding gaming. I don't, there's not a big, the constituency doesn't have an opinion heavily against or heavily for. It's just kind of one of those, I don't think either way, they're just kind of good either way. We don't hear a lot about it. And so I believe, and many do, that this is going to do nothing but help the economy. There are things that we need to, and safeguards that we need to put in place for the communities, then things that could happen in the communities around the casinos. So I'm actually co-chief patroning a bill with Delegate Simons about human trafficking, and it's in casinos, and it's a legislation that will mandate training for the casinos and the casino workers that says, these are the things that you have to look out for. We don't mandate what those things are. We just mandate that there is human trafficking training. And there's plenty of resources and experts at the state level about that, because it's a huge problem. Human trafficking is a huge problem. So we need, if we're going to put casinos in place or gaming in place, we need to make sure that we can curb any unintended consequences. So I think that's a big issue. And again, so that co-chief patroning that bill with Delegate Simons, and we've had a bunch of Zooms and calls about it on making sure we can get it through, because we don't have time to waste on that. We cannot risk this training not happening or not being required and moving ahead. So there's a lot of aspects to it. We want to do it right, and we are doing it right, but it's something we need to for our state. It can, really help our economy. It's like, so why are we not doing it? So they've been doing this for a few years, as you know, so been looking into it, they've studied it, and now we're moving ahead with it. And I think it's a great opportunity for our region.
Kelly, as many of us know, we have a new president, a new presidential administration. He's gung ho about doing some new COVID relief initiatives. Where do you see Virginia headed? I mean, we have the Rebuild Virginia grant. I think there's going to probably be another round of that. But COVID has impacted things in so many ways. I mean, what are there other initiatives that we could do? You and I talked about possibly meals tax freeze, or maybe doing away with fees and structures for different things. Where do you see this going, Kelly?
Yeah, so there is legislation that we were looking into carrying, that's already been carrying by others, about kind of giving some relief to businesses in regards to licensing, giving some delays in renewals and things like that. So we were kind of cautious when I kind of was late to the game to drop bills, because I wanted to make sure every effort and prioritizing them, the list kept changing of what was most important, because other people were carrying them, and we wanted to make sure everything was covered and we didn't want to duplicate any efforts. So there is some legislation that I can't remember which delegate, it might be Van Valkenburg, I think it is, that's carrying some things that have to do with license renewal. So there are several things that I think I've been in contact with some of the departments about. So not only is it the money, because we need the money to keep the businesses. I mean, there are landlords that are for businesses. I was talking to a yoga studio that's serves the district right on the border on Princess Anne over at Lansdowne. And, we were talking about how they, the money, the landlord's been great. We're trying to deal with this. There's been some help, but they're this much behind. And how are they going to recover? And it expanded to a larger conversation with some of the other businesses, which, how are we going to get our clients back? Like it's not even just about the money and sustaining right now. It's like, how are we going to get back to where we were before? So building back is an issue, and it is something that businesses are having to deal with. And so we've had some conversations, and it's not really legislative fixes. It's more kind of getting with the administration and getting with how we assist businesses. And that's something that we've been diving into how to do that. And I have no problem working with them and trying to figure out the best ways. They need to know that marketing your business and getting your client base back is a problem, is something that we're going to have to think about now for the future. So a yoga studio or something like that has very specific needs. And we don't want to put that business, or you think about like the Sweet Frogs, places where you're in person, or it's definitely something that has taken a huge hit. How do we approach that when they want their customer base back? So they need to provide resources, and that's what we're working on how to help them get their client base back. And that could be programs, training, and I believe that the small business our authority in Virginia is not that user friendly. It's just not. Like, we need an overhaul, and that might need to be legislation in the future, but it's just not as effective as it could be. And you probably know that. And maybe that's something we need to work on in the off season. How can we make it effective? Why are we not having, there should be more resources available, and the information, and it sometimes it's there, but it's not presented in a way where the average business owner is able to find it or even get that information.
Kelly, I love what you're saying. I mean, that's the crux of government. I mean, there's too much bureaucracy, there's too much overlap, and there's not enough coordination. And you hit the nail on the head with regards to some of these small business initiatives. They're not talking to each other. You're finding out one area is doing something and the other is doing the same thing. So we appreciate your leadership on that. One of the bills that you have, you and I have talked, it's so hard to run in local elections, right? And here in Virginia Beach, we have this like hybrid system, but basically it's an at-large voting mechanism. You've introduced legislation with regards to people voting actually for their district representatives.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, and what do you think the benefits of that would be?
So the idea behind the legislation is, right now, just to go backwards, a teacher in me can't help it. Just, you have 3 ways to do it for local races. You can do, and it's up to the locality to choose. And I'm not changing that at all. My bill doesn't change that at all. You can choose all at large council representation. And if you choose all at large, it's all at large. You can choose district awards, and then you have district awards, or you can do a combination thereof, is how the law is worded. So you can do some at large and some district awards, which is what Virginia Beach does. We have, I think it's 8 district awards, and then a few at large, and then the mayor, which is also at large. So the way it's intended, the wording, which a lot of legislators, well, everyone has been surprised that this bill came in. Why do we need this bill? It just seems repetitive, is what I keep getting. Well, we need it because it kind of is a loophole where if you choose at large, everyone votes at large. If you choose district awards, you would assume they would vote in that district award for the representative of that district award. But actually, it doesn't say that. Actually, it just says you can have district awards. So really, what we have in Virginia Beach is everyone votes for everybody all the time. So you and I are in the Princess Anne district, but we're not in the Bayside district, and we're not in the Kempsville district, but we vote for their representative. So it's a voting issue. It's a voting rights issue. It's you're voting for someone else's, the majority of the city is voting for that specific district's representation. And fundamentally, you should only vote for your representative. So that's what the bill does. It doesn't change that the city can do all at large city council seats. They can continue to do their district awards, or they can continue to do the combination, but only the voters in that district award can vote for their representative. So they would be facing a choice. They would need to decide, and it's not just for Virginia Beach, it's for any locality. So any locality would have to clarify that only the voters in that district award could vote for you.
I know that issue's been around for decades.
You've been in that issue.
So, I wish you a lot of success, luck on that. There's pros and cons on both sides. But I think what you're trying to achieve is a fair and balanced system that allows accessibility. More importantly, if somebody wants to run, they don't need $1 million to run, and they could focus on their district. But It's kind of funny. You and I, when we ran against each other, we raised nearly over $2 million to run against each other.
Right?
So, I mean, that's crazy. But
Yeah.
people need a chance to vote for their reps, and you're a great rep. How do folks get in touch with you? And I know you're very accessible. Can you tell the public how they could get in touch with you if they have any questions or concerns?
No, absolutely. Of course, my email is long, so maybe we can post it in my office number.
Yeah.
Um, I'll go ahead and say my office number because my office is a cell phone that my LA keeps, and you can text it. You can, I mean, call. You can anytime. She's extremely responsive, probably too responsive.
Mhm.
Been able to help with so many things, and that's one thing you probably notice too is people don't realize how much your office can do for people, how much they can connect, DMV, anything state related, we can even just facilitate a conversation. It helps. So I think that's a big thing that people don't realize. Of course, I have a website and all that, but let me, my phone number for my office, and I'm going to give you all this to put in writing, is 757-364-8428. So
We'll make
that's, yeah,
we'll make sure we post all that, Cal.
post it all. Okay. And then, so again, emailing, calling, whatever we have to do, we're setting in place during session, like twice a week, where I have open office hours where I'll just pretty much be in a Zoom room, and we'll schedule times for people to come in if they want to make sure if they want to share their information or share their input on a bill or anything really.
So you, as the senior Democratic representative and one of the senior delegates now, how do you coordinate and how do you communicate and develop regionalism? Are you strong? Do you have strong relationships with a lot of local leaders and some of your delegates and senators as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, this shift happened. It's just interesting. The political part is the part I hate. The I always say I've leaned down. The district has kind of gone back and forth, as you know. So, how we deal with how we represent is an interesting thing. But I have found myself after the last election as the lead Democrat in the just because the way the races have gone in the largest city in the state. So it's a big responsibility, and regionalism is very important. I'm the vice chair of the Joint Subcommittee on Coastal Flooding.
Mhm.
That's been helpful in those efforts, especially when talking about the smart skill and the transportation funding and coming up with these regional efforts. Senator Lewis is and he has part of his district is in Virginia Beach. So he's the chair of the committee. So we've been working hand in hand on these efforts in the regional approach. But you're absolutely right. The regionalism is something that we have to deal with and do better at. So I found myself in this unique position of how do I do that? And there is still that partisan divide. I mean, just to be honest, there are still letters written to the governor about vaccines when I'm working on it and I'm making calls. Why don't we work together? And it didn't have to go to out to the media at the same time. Why don't we talk? Let's talk if we're really trying to get things done. So I do hate the political aspect. You and I had that conversation. Let's just do work, get stuff done, which is what you and I are doing. So I think that's great. Whatever we can be doing just to help people. I mean, we just got to help people.
Kel, I'm glad you brought up a partisanship where, a lot of folks don't realize up in Richmond, the partisan issues are like 10% of what you do. And then, there's all kinds of other stuff. For instance, like higher ed. I know you have three and, probably preparing for them for college. How do we rein in, higher education cost and where we go from there? I know you're a former educator and you're a fellow monarch as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge issue. I looked at my husband the other day and I said, Tessa's 12. She turned 12 a couple of days ago. We don't have to put any money aside for her yet. We haven't done that. And I said, we're still paying mine. So how do we go from there when you have a generation that's dealing with, student loan debt? And I went to Virginia Wesleyan for 4 years. Then I went to ODU and got my master's. And we're talking over $200,000 when all was said and done. And when you're young, you don't know any better, and you just sign away and you just do it. You live off that money, you get the school done, and you realize, wow, teaching doesn't pay as much as I thought. So it definitely is a challenge that I understand, and it's one that it's prioritized with, especially with COVID right now, as we were trying to deal with higher ed, with making sure we are funding education, we're funding even the higher ed down to elementary. There's no good answer there. I don't think I know the answer, but I know that we have to look at not only colleges, but why have we also looked at skill-based and trades as if they are not, not everybody has to go to college. Like, when did I know I felt that pressure when I was young that I had to go to college, like it was a given. And I think that everyone has a skill set and something they're good at. And do you need to do that 4 years? I think we pushed that so much. Now we're dealing with the backlash of it. And I know there's been things put in place and we're working on getting it right. It's not right yet. It's not right yet when someone like me, who, I mean, I'll be 40 in a few weeks and I'm still paying off over 200. I mean, I think my public service and teaching is going to be helpful to paying that off. I think they have some forgiveness to where I've always been paying based off my income because I've never been able to make the full payment. So I appreciate those plans in place to be able to do that. But should that be something that someone is indebted to their entire lives? Because I'm on that track. My entire life will be indebted to paying off student loans. So making college more affordable now, and also looking at the trades and things like that, which we've done well, but we have to do better. And it's an ongoing thing. There is no answer right now. So if there's things coming down the pipe that we can work on, we need to. But COVID has kind of taken over everything right now.
Well, I mean, and there's some good and bad in COVID, as you know. It's a total reset with regards to the paradigm on how we're treating higher ed and education and workforce development. So hopefully you guys, work through these issues. I know in the 21st district, there's so many great things that, you're helping to be a part of. We got the Veterans Care Center. We got some initiatives in biotech, health, medicine, and so forth. And we appreciate a lot of initiatives you're taking. Kelly, we invite you anytime, you got an initiative or you have a message out there that you need to get out. The Coastal Virginia Chamber is here to help support those initiatives. And we appreciate your leadership. I appreciate your friendship. Thank you so much, Kelly, for being with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And please, we'll continue to do what we're doing. And please reach out to me if there's things I can do. Sometimes I don't know what we can do for business. So please make sure members know, come to me if you need help, assistance, ideas. Please bring them to me so we can do nothing but improve our area together. And thank you for all those initiatives you're mentioning were initiatives that you worked on. And so we know this is a team effort when it comes to our area.
Thank you, Kelly. God bless, and take care of, hope your family's doing well, stay safe. And the citizens of Virginia Beach have a great leader in Kelly Fowler. Take care.